had the questions set up that I wanted to ask, things that I wanted them to discuss and things I wanted to get out of them. And going into that with those pre-planned questions, going into that with norms already established for them was something I thought would help them be successful in the discussion itself. As far as things that I learned throughout this process, specific areas of their answers that need strengthening, so specific things that I could do to maybe better support them to deepen their thinking on certain questions and really get them to pull from the text more and make connections between the text and themselves, and then between the text and other texts that we've read. So I think moving forward, seeing ways that I can support in that specific direction has given me a clear focus for the next few weeks. I decided to use Socratic seminars because we've been working all year with reading and writing, and with this particular novel we've been working on making real world connections and connecting to those life lessons and themes. So I thought this would be a perfect opportunity to really hear from the students and for them to hear from each other and really discuss real world situations that appear in the novel and can connect to their lives or to the lives of those that they know. And the Socratic seminar was a perfect way for them to learn from each other. They're really good at, once the norms have been established and once they know the expectations, they're really good about catching themselves. I think they still need direction as far as where to take their answers. Instead of just thinking, okay, well, I've been successful because I've followed the norms or I spoke clearly, and really helping them understand that is a component in our discussion, but we're really trying to deepen our thinking and connect to the themes that are evident in this novel, and so really helping them make those connections. One of the biggest challenges was getting them just to follow the protocol and break this culture that's been established with them of raising a hand or talking over one another. So to really discipline ourselves, to stick to those set protocol, to stick to the sentence starters that I had for them was a challenge. And I think from that they've done really well with that, and I think giving them the control was also hard for me as a teacher, but that's been really good to help them make the discoveries of their learning and not have me necessarily explicitly point out those to them. So I think it takes discipline from the student and from the teacher to really make this student dialogue be effective, but I think when the students buy in and they follow the norms and the protocol and respect one another, and when the teacher is willing to give up control, the student dialogue can be very powerful. One of the first things that I did in order to kind of set up this structure and help kind of scaffold them into this discussion-like setting was to provide graphic organizers in the classroom. So really those anchor charts we could refer back to. Okay, these are what we've decided that we're going to follow for our discussion. And then also just allowing them to be able to practice that not in the Socratic seminar setting. So, for example, at the beginning of the year, I would just ask a question in class at a certain time. We would use the think times and still use the norms, but they weren't necessarily interacting with one another on a discussion-like basis. So we moved from that into a little bit more discussion. And one of the things I tried to do for them was to model being a participant in the discussion. So I would model things by saying, I agree with so-and-so because, or if I had a question myself, I would say, I have a question about whatever. So giving them that model and me being a participant first before giving over complete control was really helpful for them to see how an active participant would behave in the discussion. It's awesome for students to have accountability when doing this discussion, that someone is watching them and that they are responsible for watching someone else. And so when they're able to talk with one another, I think it helps them because they really do value the opinions of others, especially at middle school. They care about how they interact with other people, and so I think they take it seriously when someone says, hey, you did a good job with this, or maybe you could work on this. And then in turn, them being able to give feedback helps them get it from a different perspective, and I've seen a really positive outcome with that because they've been able to talk with one another and really kind of collaborate together on ways to make the discussion better or to make each other better. So I had looked at several different evaluation forms for higher grades, and I wanted something that was simple that the students could just kind of wrap their minds around and not have to look for so many different things. So I tried to narrow down those things to the main goals that I wanted them to achieve, which was first to engage in the discussion, to say something, to refer to the text. I wanted them to be able to ask questions, and I wanted them to use the suggested language. So I kind of just narrowed it down to those 3 check boxes first, and then the rest of the evaluation form is going a little bit in depth as far as what are some specific things that this person did well, or what are some specific things this person can work on. So trying to keep it simple but still accomplish the goals was kind of how I developed that. And each time that I do it, I'm trying to refine and look for different ways to maybe even incorporate the student setting a goal for themselves before even beginning the process. That's something that I thought I might add for the next time that I do that. And I think it's very important to have the reflection at the bottom so that the student can reflect on, yes, what this person observed, and also what I thought for myself during the discussion, how I met the certain goals that are laid out on the evaluation form. I definitely was able to let go of control in stages. I think first, me being the group facilitator and modeling that for them for a couple of times, and then the next time I gave partial control. So I sat in on the circle but did not act as the group facilitator. And during this time, it was kind of a safety net for the students as well. So if they totally didn't know what to do, or they were confused about where to go with a specific question or how to conduct think time, I was able to intervene, but I wasn't necessarily in charge of the circle. And then the last step was just to give up complete control and to kind of let them have the reins to take the questions and discuss. And sometimes it does involve the students not doing it perfectly, but I think I, as a classroom teacher, learn from that, and I think the students learn from that too. So I think it's important for teachers to remember, even if you give up complete control and it fails at some area, or in some area rather, that's still a point of learning for the teacher and for the student as well. So today I learned that a lot of my students were willing to participate, especially when they were connecting to a real world situation. There were several students who connected it to an experience that they had, or maybe a person that they knew, and I think that was a really good way to connect to the novel itself. But I noticed that only a few of my students really referred to the text about specific lines or passages to really support their answer. I noticed one student that questioned another student, "Why do you think this?" And that was a point where the student had to give evidence from the text. And I saw that, and I thought that would be a really great way to kind of help support them as far as giving text evidence. So I thought, as far as framing my questions, maybe I ask questions, what is the best evidence for this particular thing in the novel? And then maybe they discuss which piece of evidence would best support that answer. So maybe reframing my questions to meet their needs of really being able to support answers with evidence. It's good that they do connect to real world themes and lessons, but I think taking it deeper into using the actual text. I think the thing that helped create the safety net for my class was the beginning of the year, just setting up a classroom culture where we respect one another, we value everyone's opinion. You may not think of it in the way that I do, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you're wrong. We can have a discussion and not agree, but still be respectful. So setting that up even before we did Socratic seminars was extremely important as far as laying a foundation for the students to trust one another. And then anytime, of course, that we were having discussions, to really enforce that standard of respect. Like, we are going to listen when people are talking, we're not going to interrupt. We are going to hear everyone's opinion and really give time to think. I think that's one of the things that help my students is when I explain the rationale behind think time. We're not just saying this is a time to think. We're actually taking time to process what we would like to say, or to give someone else the opportunity to process what they would like to say. Yes, I do think that it does improve after the peer-to-peer feedback, because they're able to see, okay, well, this person needed to work on this, I'm going to do better in that regard. Or this person did really well and I want to do well in that as well. So I think the peer-to-peer feedback did give them an advantage. And also just, I think with Socratic seminars for the middle school level, it's just continuous practice and just seeing it modeled, seeing it done, and students being able to see that I can say what I think about a specific topic, or I can share my ideas, And other people may think the same thing, or other people may have another perspective on that I can learn from. So I think a continual exposure to that really gives them confidence coming into a group discussion. I think for middle school students, and just for people in general, everyone wants to be heard. And, you know, giving students an opportunity to share what it is that they want to share with others, and also connect it to literature and connect it to things that are required of them but that they can take into the real world, is something that I think will be an asset to those students, and I think it helps them be successful as far as communicating their ideas and collaborating with others, not just in a school setting but in a real world setting as well.